Before we start today, I have to tell you about State Farm agent Brian McDevitt. A lot of our listeners have gone to him for all their insurance needs, and he's been very helpful in getting them the coverage they deserve. But no games with Brian. He's just here to help and make sure you feel safe. So if you have insurance needs and you haven't called him yet, what are you waiting for? Dial up the number, 630-796-2662. That's 630-796-2662. Or find him online at bryanismyagent.com. That's bryanismyagent.com. And make sure to mention Sports Talk Chicago. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. I want to start today with this. Before the Justin Fields draft pick by the Bears, do we recall the incompetency? Do we recall the problems with this team? How bad Ryan Pace was at drafting, how Matt Nagy couldn't coach Mitch, how there were active calls to fire both of them back in January. I have proof, in case you forgot. I could show you screenshots and tweets, images, comments on my videos. Hashtag fire Pace, hashtag fire Nagy. Got them all over the place. I find it funny how all of that criticism went away just because of one draft pick. I want to read you this stat from at PFF_Brad. 2016, right up in the first round for Leonard Floyd. 2017, right up in the first round for Mitch Trubisky. 2018, right up in the second round for Anthony Miller. Quite the impressive stretch of wasted draft capital. Let's not forget, too, that Ryan Pace's first pick was Kevin White. Kevin White, who barely played a game for the Bears and got hurt and was gone. Now you all understand why I didn't want the Bears to trade up again for Fields. Had nothing to do with the player. Had everything to do with the track record. That's why to this day, I want to see Fields play before I buy in fully. Do I see potential? 100%. But you will not see me say MVP, Super Bowl champion, great player, franchise player, until I see some sort of results. You may have forgotten about what the Bears did, about how incompetent they were, about all the issues that plagued the organization, but guess what? I didn't. I didn't forget about all the first round, second round draft whiffs by this team. I didn't forget about them trading up too much, spending too much on a quarterback position that didn't need all that money put into it, having salary cap issues, now an aging defense. I have not forgotten about any of that. Maybe you have. Everyone's in la la land talking about Justin Fields. Great. Great quarterbacks overcome issues like this. So I wish him the best. But the fact of the matter is, as of right now, the Bears are technically still incompetent. Fields hasn't played yet. We don't know what to expect. So I want you to keep that in mind when I read you this story. Source: Houston Texans acquire Anthony Miller in a trade with the Chicago Bears. The Bears traded up to draft Miller in the second round in 2018, and he led the team with 7 touchdown catches that season, but Miller has caught just 4 touchdowns since then. In January, the wide receiver was ejected from the Bears' playoff loss to the New Orleans Saints for fighting. We all remember that. I said that day, it's over. When Matt Nagy cornered him, talked into his ear, I said, he's done. Nagy told him, you're done. Your career in Chicago is over. And sure enough, it is now. I'm going to put this bluntly, and I really don't care who I offend. Anthony Miller is a bust. Say what you want. You could try and stick up for him. I've seen people say he needs a new change of scenery. No. He's a bust. He's a bust of a player. The Bears made a big mistake by even drafting him, let alone trading up to get him. That was a joke. You trade up for a number 2 wide receiver because what? You thought he'd be Alshon Jeffrey or something? Didn't work. I saw people say, well, why didn't he stay? Well, what's the need for him? If you all believe in Darnell Mooney, then goodbye Anthony Miller. Darnell Mooney's now the number 2. Now, if Darnell did not pop off in the way that he did, Miller would still have a purpose here in Chicago. There'd still be a reason to keep him. There is no reason. I'm of the philosophy that you should always go with the younger guy. So, for example, last year, with the whole Mitch and Nick thing, we all knew from day one what Nick Foles was capable of. There was no ambiguity. There was no, well, maybe he'll be an MVP. No. We knew his ceiling. We knew what he did before. We knew he was aging. We knew he wouldn't replicate anything. Trubisky, on the other hand, we didn't really know. Something could have changed. Maybe he could have replicated 2018. Maybe Matt Nagy would have catered to his strengths a bit more, and things could have gotten better. And in the end, Trubisky did have the better numbers and did rally the team to a playoff appearance. They went with the younger guy. There's no bias there. It's just a fact. A younger guy, no matter what position, has more potential. We've seen less of him, which means he has more of a possibility to improve. That's just a fact. So in this case, when you have on your roster Allen Robinson, who's a fit at number 1, then Anthony Miller, Darnell Mooney, Daz Newsome, Javon Williams, Riley Ridley. When you evaluate that group, you have to ask yourself, who's youngest, who has the most potential, and who do we already kind of know about? Anthony Miller was the odd one out. Darnell Mooney's going to have a big year this year. Be the first to tell you. Huge season. His potential's through the roof. Daz Newsome was put on the PUP list, but when he comes back, I really think he's going to be good too. Sneaky good. Riley Ridley has never really played. You have no impression on him. Javon Williams, I think, is a bust, but he's younger than Miller. Maybe he could be coached. Maybe with the right quarterback, he could succeed. Miller's had Mitch and Nick. Miller had a great rookie year despite having no quarterback and has regressed since. So it proves that it's not a quarterback issue. Guy had 7 touchdowns his rookie year. He was supposed to get better. Didn't. Got worse. Caused fights on the field. It wasn't worth keeping him. Now, fortunately, I didn't see too many people heard about this move. I think everybody kind of accepted it and understood. That's the correct way to look at it. Whenever you make a decision in life, always go with what presents more potential. Not just a sports thing, life thing. Whatever you have the most potential in, that's what you go with. The Bears made a smart decision, for once. The problem is they made a stupid decision in the beginning by even drafting and moving up to take Anthony Miller. To me, he's a bust. You could say second-round wide receiver, they never work out, doesn't matter. They gave up precious draft capital to get this. To get 11 touchdowns in 3 seasons, fighting, ejections, and no performance. Tell me how that's acceptable. Explain to me how that's not being a bust. If you move up for anybody and they don't work out, automatic bust. What about people say busts only count in the first round? They don't. Second round applies too. When you move up for a wide receiver, take him out of Memphis, you expect him to be a legit threat on the offense and he can't produce, that's the definition of a bust. It would be different if they moved up to get him. But even then, second round wide receiver, good player. Scouting report was good. He was supposed to be a mid-level to high-level talent in the NFL. Didn't work. Now he's going to Houston. The part that's shameful is that if Houston somehow keeps Deshaun Watson, which we don't know yet, guaranteed he'll do well. Guaranteed. With Deshaun Watson, he'll do great. Deshaun Watson is a generational talent. Off the field stuff aside, if we're talking about just on the field performance, Deshaun Watson makes everybody better. So if the Texans somehow keep Watson, and if he plays, Miller's going to have a great year. And Chicago Bears fans are going to be shaking their heads, but at the end of the day, it's not worth the headache. And we don't know what the Bears got back from Miller. I'm sure everybody's going to be enraged when we find out, and when everyone does, I'll do another video about it. But it doesn't really matter. Let's make sure our expectations are realistic here. What do you expect for a bust of a second-round pick, wide receiver, 3 years in the league, no performance? I'm expecting maybe, if they're lucky, 7th-round pick. That's it. What more could you offer? What more do you deserve to get for a guy of Miller's caliber? That's the question. I know what the answer is. 0. That's why I can't believe the Bears actually found a trade partner. I'm like shocked over here. Because Anthony Miller, not a good player. Not a good receiver. Bust. Damaged goods. By the way, Miller joined 12 other wide receivers on the Texans roster. So just because he got traded to Houston doesn't mean he'll even play. Maybe he'll get cut. That's another thing, too. So his career's really taken a tailspin. I feel bad, but I don't. Because, again, at least control your emotions. Don't fight on the field. Don't cause fights. Don't eject yourself and take your team out of a playoff game against New Orleans when you were in it. And then you do something stupid and get ejected. And the regression was just mind-boggling. He scored all that with Mitch Trubisky as his quarterback. So my point is then, you can't blame it on the quarterback. You can't blame his performance on bad quarterbacking when he had a great year with Mitch. So I do really hope things work out for him. But I'm not expecting much. And to me, he's a bust. Plain and simple. Anthony Miller is a bust. Oh, but he wasn't drafted in the first round. Doesn't matter. The Bears gave up draft capital to get him. Told you about that stat earlier. The Bears have traded up for Leonard Floyd, Mitch Trubisky, Anthony Miller. They drafted Kevin White. The Bears have actually had a lot of issues in the past with drafting. And just because of one draft pick that's unproven, everyone's willing to sweep that under the rug. I'm not. I remember. I'll always remember. Hold your teams accountable. This trade should enrage some Bears fans. I mean, really? You move up for him, expect him to be great, 3 years in, doesn't work, trade him. So you gave up draft capital to get him, you're not going to get anything back for him. So in the end, it's a net loss for everybody. Think about it that way. And this happened after the Justin Fields pick. Remember that too. So for those of you who admonish Ryan Pace and say great job for Justin Fields, remember that around Justin Fields and with receivers and other talent, he screwed up big time. He's not off the hook for me unless he wins a Super Bowl. Ryan Pace is not off the hook for what he did, for his moves over his career here in Chicago. There's nothing wrong with holding people accountable. I know Bears fans are excited and happy. New quarterback, new look team. Oh, they're going to be good again. Remember that everything isn't perfect yet. And it won't be for some time, really. I just had David Kaplan on. You'll hear it in a minute if you're listening. He told me the same thing. We don't know what to expect, truly, from Fields yet. We don't know. He may sit all year, never play. He may play week 4, week 5. Great. But still, we don't know how he's going to perform. That's not being a hater. That's being realistic, too. Sick of hearing people say, I'm being a hater. There is no hatred here. It's called tempering your expectations and understanding what's going on here. The fact of the matter is, he has not played a game yet. So let's see what happens. And until then, I'm going to have my eyes and my ears focused on Ryan Pace for what he did. This was a sham of a trade. I'm happy he's gone, but I want you to remember in your head what the Bears did to get Anthony Miller, now what they're getting back. All in all, it's a net loss. Again, you trade up to get him, expect him to be this great wide receiver, doesn't work. Trade him, I guarantee you, at best, they're getting a 7th round pick, which means that's a net loss, another net loss for this team. I just want you to remember that the incompetency is not over because of one draft pick. To this day, for the Bears, there are still questions. There are still needs that have to be addressed that haven't been. One quarterback, 99% of the time, is not going to change the entire outlook. Very few NFL quarterbacks win on their own. There are a couple. Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady to an extent. He still needs certain players. Very few quarterbacks have nothing and win. Justin Fields will need something to help him. And if the Bears continue with their strategy and continue to act like they have before, as in moving up to get Miller, then trading him for a net loss, having issues drafting wide receivers, losing possibly Allen Robinson at the end of the year, all of these things will add up. That's something you have to be concerned about. This Anthony Miller trade might seem completely insignificant to you. So what? The Bears had a net loss. Well, could have future ramifications. Or it could prove to you that just because of one draft pick, it doesn't mean the Bears are okay now. It doesn't mean Ryan Pace is a great GM now. It doesn't mean you should have written apology letters to him on social media after the Fields pick. Remember, he still has to find a supporting cast for him. It's not going to help anybody if Fields is great, tearing it up, and there's no supporting cast and they go 7-9 every year, 7-10. Not going to work. So always keep that in the back of your head. It's not that Fields is going to be bad, but you have to have a supporting cast. And this trade with Anthony Miller, well, it's a loss. You move up to get him, and at best, you're getting a late round draft pick in return after 3 years of investing in him. That pattern can't continue for the Bears. That's why, as insignificant as this news seemed, there's a lot of signaling behind it. And if you catch it, you'll realize what's really going on. More to come here on Sports Talk Chicago. My interview with David Kaplan comes up next, so stay tuned.